Hi guys, welcome back to London. Today I'm in Chelsea. It's raining. It's early Saturday morning, it's raining. See Sloane Square, tube behind me. I'm in Sloane Square right now. Today, this morning, I'm headed to get breakfast at the famous full English breakfast at one of London's greasy spoons on one of London's most iconic streets, the King's Road. I thought today I'd try and focus a little bit on the King's Road. I've made lots of videos and vlogs here in Chelsea. A few have started right here in Sloane Square. I've made videos up there on Sloane Street. I think I've started here and gone to restaurants out the back. I've been up Sloane Street and bought, I mean, there's a Cartier, Tiffany's and a load of luxury goods stores up there. What did I go? I think I bought a card holder, had it personalised in Smythson's in one video. You can watch that if you want. Duke of York Square over there we've been to, and I think in the Rolling Stones video I pretty much walked the length of the King's Road, but it's featured in a lot but it's never starred in one. And I think when estate agents sell houses in the surrounding streets here, they bill Sloane Square behind me as the heart of Chelsea, and if that's the heart of Chelsea, then the King's Road, which starts right here, is definitely the main vein through it. It starts at Sloane Square here and runs about 2 miles that way to Fulham. And yeah, I want to focus a little bit on it today. I think historically it would have been, it's always been an iconic street, but I think in recent decades it might have, that status became questionable, I think. But well, no, it's always been an iconic street. It's always been Chelsea's high street effectively, but in the late 90s it started to become a little more than that. So Duke of York Square over there, which is behind these shops, probably had a lot to do with its changing fortunes. But historically the King's Road was the King's Road. It was a private road used by the royal family. I think it was King Charles II first. He used it to travel from central London palaces to his palace in Kew. Before we disappear down the street, that store there, Peter Jones, is one of the, I guess, the famous stores here. It's billed as one of the first department stores, but there's a lot of myths and legends about this street, and I think it was an early department store here in town, but it wasn't the first. It started as just one store, grew into a parade of shops there, and was then eventually the parade was demolished and they built one big department store. But yeah, it was an early department store, and it's a pretty renowned location. So yeah, this started off as the King's Road, the road linking the Royal Palace to here in the town to Kew, and it would have been, access to it would have been restricted and coveted, so it would have always had a kudos because of its links with the royal family. Then by the 1830s, well, in 1830 it was open to the public because the royal family was no longer using its palaces in Kew, so the street was open to the public and slowly turned into a shopping destination. But this whole section here, which is Duke of York Square, and the buildings there were barracks until 15 years ago, like 2003, 2004. That shop there was the chapel. But yeah, this whole thing was originally just brick walls and railings. So they opened it all up, and I think that kind of draws probably a bit, although they don't, it's called Duke of York Square, they don't identify themselves as the King's, they don't identify as the King's Road itself, but it definitely draws a crowd. But yeah, originally it just had, you can see some of the railings left there, it was just all railed off and wasn't open to the public, but the Ministry of Defence sold it to developers and they turned it into shops, and the main military school that was in the centre of it is now a modern art gallery. And I went there for my Rolling Stones vlog video I made, if you check that out, and it's a pretty good show. So yeah, I want to take a look at some of the iconic stores along here. In the 60s it probably shot to fame and has been renowned ever since as the home of the swinging 60s. But one of these stores, I think that Vodafone store there, was home to a restaurant called the Chelsea Kitchen, I think. And I can't really figure out what kind of chain it was part of, but it was definitely part of a chain. And the restaurant we're going to, called the Stockpot, was one of its sister restaurants. At some point, they may have started out as a chain, but they started out in the 60s. But at some point, they've been split up, and a lot of them have sadly gone. The one in Soho is now Patty and Bun Burgers, which again I've made a vlog in. But yeah, there was people were upset when that was going. It was due to rent rises. But yeah, home in the swinging 60s, I think it shot to fame as being super fashionable. The thing is, when something comes into fashion, it then goes out. Tried to reinvent itself really for, I guess, subculture fashion again in the 70s, and Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren opened shops here selling punk outfits, it would have been. But yeah, it slowly died a death, I think, as a sort of, I guess, a place for tourists to visit, certainly. But that store there was the Thomas Crapper store, and that McDonald's there, I'm going to go and get a coffee in the McDonald's because I've never been in it, was the original Chelsea Drugstore. So let's pop in there and take a look.
Chelsea Drugstore to get your prescription beer.
Okay, I didn't get a coffee, but I did manage to wait out the rain. If you've watched my previous vlogs, you'll know why I didn't get a coffee. But yeah, that building there was the original Chelsea Drugstore, made famous in the Rolling Stones song. Well, it was famous before they sang about it, but you can't always get what you want when they're singing about the Chelsea Drugstore. That was it. That store there, 120, was the original Thomas Crapper store, who's credited with inventing the toilet. I'll come back to that in a moment. The Chelsea Drugstore sounds like it was an incredible shop. Opened in the 60s when this was like the most fashionable part of town, and a multi-story shop. Originally it was a pub, then it opened as the Chelsea Drugstore, and yeah, multiple stories, bars, obviously a pharmacy or chemist, and newsagents, I think, record shop. And at some point, apparently it was open 7 days a week and long hours, and at some point they would also do home deliveries, and they used girls in purple catsuits on motorbikes, which sounds pretty cool. So yeah, the other shop I was looking at, the Thomas Crapper store, 120. My grandmother used to tell me stories about Thomas Crapper when I was growing up, that he invented the toilet. Just go on and on and on about it. And the reason being was Thomas Crapper was like a renowned plumber. While we're here, I think that coffee shop there, I think, was the original Mary Quant store, Bazaar, where she took credit for inventing the miniskirt and hot pants, which were shot to fashion in the 60s. I'm not sure if she did invent them, but she's credited with it. There is a Mary Quant store today in York Square. But yeah, the Thomas Crapper store. My grandma used to go on and on about him because that side of my family's grave is in Elmersing graveyard, and Thomas Crapper was a plumber and inventor here in Chelsea. He got credited with inventing the toilet, or the flushing toilet. He kind of made improvements to it, didn't actually invent it. But let's roll with the story that invented it because it's much more interesting. But yeah, my family's grave is like adjacent to the Thomas Crapper grave, and my grandmother had the duty of keeping the grave clean, I guess. That Pizza Hut restaurant always looks incredible. Most incredible looking pizza restaurant you've ever seen. Pizza Hut went through a phase of taking on buildings that would be completely, that most restaurant chains would not even think twice about, because they wouldn't be able to stamp their image internally, and they've got some incredible buildings up and down the country. I think there's one in York which is like in an old banking hall, if it's still there, been there for years, but yeah, inside it's incredible. The last place you'd expect to sell pizza. But yeah, anyway, Thomas Crapper, my family's grave is adjacent to Thomas Crapper's grave. It was completely overgrown. My grandmother had the duty of cleaning our family grave, and at some point in time, which was, I guess, she found a chore. That Starbucks there, apparently the first Starbucks to open in the UK in the late 90s. Yes, my grandmother had this chore of cleaning the family grave. At some point, the Thomas Crapper Appreciation Society or something along those lines sprang up, and they started cleaning the grave. Volunteers started like attending to his grave, but the graves are so close together, there's just like an inch or so between them. They started cleaning the surrounding area, so my grandmother was like so chuffed that she didn't have to clean the grave anymore, because she had a whole team of volunteers doing it for her who were mainly interested in Thomas Crappers, but they were cleaning ours. That building there, apothecary store it is now, that was once an antique centre, full of antiques, different antique dealers. It's an amazing looking building, but they shut down the back of it. I don't know what they're developing it. I think this building here is going to be developed soon as well. The old cinema and the Habitat building. You read about it, there's always protests when they develop things, but eventually they quite often happen. So yeah, I'm not sure what they're developing that into. And somewhere here opposite Chelsea Town Hall, there's talk of putting in a Crossrail station. I would imagine somewhere here. Which again, serious protests about that, but that will probably happen, but not until like 2030. So did I finish my Thomas Crapper story? Yeah, I think so. The Thomas Crapper Association basically cleaned my family grave. Thomas Crapper's still going, by the way. You can buy Thomas Crapper toilets, Thomas Crapper sinks, all sort of wash basin accessories. So while we're here, Chelsea Old Town Hall there, that doorway there. Today, on a Saturday, it's a horrible day today, but people get married in there all day, and it's the local registry office. So on Saturdays you'll often see wedding parties standing outside there throwing confetti over brides coming out. It's pretty cool, coming straight out onto the street full of shoppers. But yeah, it's a good spacious one. It's the road. Chelsea Farmers Market. Chelsea Farmers just up there. To be honest with you, often looks quite sad. The garden shop itself is quite small, but then there's like this sort of seating, restaurant and health food store at the side. And yeah, last time I went in there, I didn't bother pulling out the camera because it wasn't looking at its best. But it's because it's out of season, midsummer, it's super popular because you can go there and sit outside. That's another popular restaurant. Right now, the Ivy Chelsea Garden. But yeah, the town hall it's great to sit and watch weddings popping out. Take a sit here in the gardens. We should be coming up on the restaurant I want to go to. About here, beyond the Chelsea Old Town Hall, here on the King's Road, you stop getting the the global chain, well there are still a few global chains, but the shops and stores start to get a little bit more interesting. So from here on out you've got more independent stores. I mean, Gail's Bakery there is a chain, but it's a small British chain of bakers. Sell amazing bread. And yeah, the Stockpot is somewhere just up here opposite, I think it's nearly opposite the Bluebird Cafe, which is another super, the Bluebird's another super popular spot for ladies at lunch. In fact, my girlfriend actually went there for dinner last night, and I was almost toying with going and making this video last night, but it's not really where I want to make the video about. I want to go to this more traditional British greasy spoon, but four of them went, and the portions were so big she actually brought home a doggy bag. She never brings home doggy bags for me, but she brought me home a portion of chicken. They ordered a chicken. There's four of them. They were sharing. One of the dishes was a chicken dish, and I've never seen a chicken leg so big. But yeah, obviously the four of them ordered all this food. They thought it'd be a small chicken. It was massive, but yeah, it was delicious. It was really good chicken. But the size of it, if you showed me the bone, I'd have told you it was a turkey or a goose. I don't know where they got chicken that big from. But yeah, this video is not going to feature the Bluebird, but I can definitely recommend the chicken because I had it takeaway last night. I didn't ask how much it cost, but I can guarantee it's going to cost a lot more than breakfast at the Greasy Spoon. So yeah, we're just here. I always like to look at that art store. Always looks incredible. Picture frames from stores, but then in the other window they've always got art supplies. And see, the boutique stores are starting to get a little bit more interesting here, but that's where we're going, the Stockpot. They sell English food and Italian kind of English versions of Italian dishes, if that makes sense. Super inexpensive. Everyone was crying when the one in Soho went because it was super central and really inexpensive. So yeah, I'm going to go in here and we'll get a breakfast. Let's hit the Cadogan Arms. Under development.
Welcome to the Stockpot, Chelsea. I'd describe the menu as it's a cafe, a diner, so it's all simple food. It's Anglo-Italian, so you've got pasta and some main courses, some British classics like liver and bacon, burgers, omelette, salads, and I'm here for the breakfast menu. I'm going to get the full English breakfast, so egg, bacon, sausage, baked beans, hash browns, toast, and I'm going to get a coffee. Okay, full English with coffee. The thing I kind of enjoy about the Stockpot, all the staff seem, I believe they're Italian, and they're like these little Italian touches, some flair. So I ordered a coffee, and if this was a British run Greasy Spoon, you would just get a black filter coffee, maybe with milk in, or maybe, you know, the little pots of milk. But here the chaps bought me a cappuccino, which is very nice. The other thing they do, when they serve my breakfast, they then brought round the black pepper mill and offered me freshly ground black pepper, as if I'm in an Italian pizzeria, which is, it wouldn't happen in a traditional British Greasy Spoon, but I've got a sprinkling of freshly ground black pepper, why not? The constant roar of supercars in the air here. Yeah, so this is the full English breakfast at the Stockpot. 2 bacon, sausage, hash browns, beans, tomatoes, egg and toast. I'd recommend the Stockpot if you want something filling, tasty, and above all else, great value for money. If you're looking for something fancy, if you want to impress someone or be impressed, this isn't the place. This is the kind of place that locals will come for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and people that work locally in the area. It's a cafe, not a fancy restaurant. I'd also recommend the Stockpot if you're a tourist or visitor to London, if you've got things to do and places to go, because the service is very friendly, but it's also super fast and efficient. So yeah, you can pop in here and have a quick lunch rather than a long boozy one in one of the finer restaurants along this street.
That was great. Coffee's pretty good too. Okay, breakfast at the Stockpot was great. It's now raining. I never needed one of these before I started vlogging. Still kind of don't, but the camera does. Okay. Right, it's raining a bit harder than it was before. Yeah, definitely. I definitely recommend breakfast at the Stockpot if you're in Chelsea. Like a lot of things in Chelsea, it's not the best in town. There's a lot of second best. The best breakfast is definitely, the best greasy spoon, best breakfast definitely is the Regency Cafe by Victoria. However, we're not in Victoria, in Chelsea, and it costs more. The one at that kind of breakfast will cost you a little bit more at Regency, but that one was very good. If you're in town and want to try full English. Also, throughout the day, the menu, the whole menu is just great value for money. Sort of a mix of British classics and Italian dishes, cooked kind of in a British style. In fact, my waiter was Italian, and I ordered coffee. I was expecting something strong and black, but I got a cappuccino. So I guess in Italy it's cappuccino time, and so yeah. But the thing is, when things are inexpensive, and plus I didn't specify, you can kind of forgive a lot. Also, he brought around a black pepper grinder and ground black pepper onto my. I was avoiding black pepper, why not? So I had ground black pepper on my breakfast, which isn't standard practice in most British greasy spoons, I've got to be honest. But yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm recommending it. It's just all these places have funny little twists. Just over here is another real popular spot, as I was saying earlier, with ladies at lunch and my girlfriend for dinner last night. The Bluebird Cafe. I'm not sure if it is a cafe, might just be Bluebird, but well, it looks like it was a former garage, sort of petrol station. Now it's sort of a restaurant and a shop. Super popular. Way more expensive than the Stockpot. But I'd love to know how much the chicken I had for dinner last night from there cost. But yeah, it was delicious. I would just want to head around the corner and show you one last thing down this way, and that is the Clock House shop. Is it the World's End, Vivienne Westwood shop? It's kind of another one of the other iconic buildings. It's just around the corner, and then I'm going to head back. So yeah, let's go and take a look at the Vivienne Westwood shop. It's still the Vivienne Westwood shop now. I think back in the day, in the 60s, when they launched a collection, they changed the name of the shop, but at some point it got stuck as the World's End, and it still is today. Okay, so that is it. These umbrellas are annoying. That's it. I better get used to it when winter's coming here in London. Yeah, that is the World's End shop. See the clock spinning at speed backwards, and I can see shoes in the window. Just going to take a closer. I've never been in there. I'm not going in there now. Yeah, Vivienne Westwood's shop. I think it's been a famous destination since the 60s. full of Vivienne Westwood shoes and clothes, which probably cost a fortune. The shop looks, from the outside, looks pretty shabby, but I bet the prices inside are not far from shabby. Quite like the look of the, see the car showroom there? Car design. Looks like modified Land Rover Defenders and Range Rovers. They look pretty cool. I bet they're pretty expensive too. So right, I'm gonna head back down here. I hope you enjoyed this trip to the King's Road. A little look along at, I mean, looking at the things from the past and some of the iconic former shops is cool, but it's nice to visit the past, but we can't live there, you know, so it's more at the, it's also, I hope you've enjoyed looking at modern day King's Road. I've tried to stick to the King's Road, but as I was saying earlier, a lot of the interesting spots are just off the King's Road, but as this is a King's Road video, I'm stuck to the main street. The Duke of York Square is definitely a super popular destination, and it's probably, yeah, like I was saying, the street was becoming more like any other suburban London high street by the late 90s. I think that kind of turned the rot around, and yeah, it's made it like a fashion destination once again, because it's full of global brands and fashion stores. Right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Toodles. The view I gave you of Peter Jones department store from the front kind of makes it look like a John Lewis store, a kind of a Waitrose supermarket. But if you want the grander entrance, if you're coming here in your Ferrari, or if you're coming here in your convertible Ferrari, maybe you're coming in your Rolls Royce. At the back of the store, what's the I'm not sure, but it's not the King's Road side. The entrance is a bit grander. Can't get the tube home. Like, subscribe, buy my merch. I'd like one of those cars. Thought I'd try the first Starbucks in London. It's got a filter coffee, they're only £1 here in London. Tastes like Starbucks. Again, been the first Starbucks in London. Like all of the stories of these places here, it's kind of, when you dig deeper into it, it's a bit, it's like the miniskirt being invented here, and the toilet being invented here, and the first Starbucks in London being here. I'm pretty sure when Starbucks came to London, they didn't just come and open one shop, they bought a chain of 60 odd stores called the Seattle Coffee Company, but somehow that's the first one. But I'm not sure how, when you buy 60 shops, one of them's first. Unless that's wrong, maybe they did just come and open one store, but if they bought all 60, then that wasn't the first one. It was one of the first 60. But yeah, maybe it was the first to be rebranded from the Seattle Coffee Company to a Starbucks. Anyway, I'm finish my coffee and head on. Doodles. Thank you. I hate chuggers. Hate's a strong word, but they are scum. UNICEF, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'll be paid for that in the comments. Oh yeah, chugging's a terrible thing. It's a waste of money, they're getting paid. You're giving them money to pay chuggers. Stand on the street in the pouring rain, trying to get people's direct debit details. Next you'll be making multi-million-pound TV adverts. I know you already did that. With charitable donations. Most charities, it's all about raising the money. They spend a fortune doing it. Calling them scum's possibly a bit strong, but I think they're just doing the job. So it's a shitty job, standing in the rain, collecting bank details. I mean, I guess if you need a job, you need a job. My mates have done it, but I guess when I say they're scum, the charities behind them are scummy. They should be regulated out, or it should only be, you know, it shouldn't be a job, paid job. They should only be allowed to use volunteers.
Thank you.
Guy's wearing a UNICEF emergency response, like a stab jacket, on the King's Road in Chelsea. I'm guessing someone's credit card declines. They call that big guy to find an alternative method of payment. After ranting about all that, I think you've got to be part of the change you want to see. Got myself a copy of the Big Issue from the Big Issue seller. At least you know where the money's going. Something to read on the train ride home. And doesn't require bank details. Cash. Another member of the UNICEF emergency response team there. There's loads of them, and they're probably all on minimum wage. So they've got to, yeah, I guess they've got to earn more than this dude per hour just to pay the wage bill for that lot. Okay, a little bit behind the scenes for today's video. I wanted to use a particular song in the video. You can't always get what you want by the Rolling Stones, but it will get copyright flagged if I do. Might get blocked in certain countries. I could use an acoustic cover, but same thing. So I'm going to try and make a recognisable acoustic cover, but mash it up. I think I'm going to mash it up a little bit with a sort of strumming pattern from Ooh La La by the Faces. I'm no expert at playing guitar though, so it could sound terrible, but hopefully it'll be good enough for background music on certain scenes in this movie. So let's give it a whirl. I didn't have a capo for the guitar either, so I've had to rubber band a pencil on this one. What are we doing? Yeah, don't judge my guitar playing skills. Just recording it as a voiceover. repeat. Hopefully that'll do it. Hopefully you heard it in the film and you didn't notice it was homemade.